With WesternUnion.com's 4-star rated mobile app, send money fast virtually anywhere for just about anything. Download the free Western Union mobile app today from iTunes or the Play Store, or visit WesternUnion.com to learn more.
Can you feel it?
Durant for three, bingo! Right down the chute, Kevin Durant.
NBA Lockdown with Bruce Bowen.
Gets it to James. Here's a three for the win. Goal! It is good!
The NBA Lockdown podcast with Bruce Bowen. Along with three-time NBA champion Bruce Bowen, here's ESPN.com NBA columnist Israel Gutierrez.
Welcome into another edition of the NBA Lockdown podcast with Bruce Bowen. I'm Israel Gutierrez. Bruce, before we get into these Game 7s, we're going to discuss the games going on tonight.
We're not hanging our heads at all, and that's the biggest thing. We believe in each other, and that entire locker room, nobody thinks this series is over.
That was Chandler Parsons, whose Houston Rockets are heading to Portland tonight to play Game 6 and try to extend this series and get their Game 7 at home. Bruce, this two teams are so evenly matched, it feels like. They have a similar style of play in terms of, really surrounding their post players with great perimeter shooters. One has a great point guard in Damian Lillard, create. The other one has a two-guard in James Harden that kind of plays that same role. So it kind of has the feel of a series that momentum really plays a part in that whichever team is playing its best basketball at the time, it can swing from one team to the other. And it started off with Portland. It now seems like Houston has a grasp of what they're doing in terms of defending LaMarcus Aldridge better with bigger players regularly, and really getting their offense a little bit more where they're not relying on James Harden, where they can have him go 5 for 15 and still win a game. Is it enough, though, for them to win in Portland, do you think?
No, I don't think it is enough. I think James Harden has to be huge, Izzy, and that's on both sides of the ball. If he's not, when you have your star players, your go-to guys, they have to be big, especially on the road. We saw how monstrous of games LaMarcus Aldridge had, the first two, in Houston. He needed to set the tone for his team. He needed to help guys feel comfortable, whereas at home he wasn't nearly as aggressive, or I should say as productive, because of the adjustments that Houston made, but it still didn't keep them out of the game. They were still in each game that they've been in, especially in the last game. But he didn't have a good game at all. But you saw others step up. Wesley Matthews, he was huge as far as playing both sides of the ball. He's defending James Harden to the best of his ability, and he's also giving James Harden a problem on the offensive end, whereas he's not playing defense, so he has to do a better job of trying to contain it. But now that Wesley Matthews has confidence, it's a lot harder to deal with those type of players when they get their confidence going. But on the other side, though, Izzy, because of the game that LaMarcus Aldridge had in Houston, I think he's going to be huge. I think you're going to see an effort kind of like a Kevin Durant effort in Memphis, because all the things that have been going against him, he's a scorer. He understands. This isn't new to him. It's one thing when you have a role player that you've taken out of a game, but you can't take go-to guys out of the game. They're just too good.
Well, they had, outside of LaMarcus Aldridge, they had basically everybody else in the starting lineup give you productive minutes. You had, the backcourt, Lillard and Matthews, gave you 53 points and shot 50%. Batum and Robin Lopez shot better than 50% and threw in 32 points. The two elements that were missing, LaMarcus Aldridge, as you mentioned, 3 of 12 for 8 points, and the bench. The bench gave you nothing. The bench gave you 5 points, and that's where you have to assume that bench would be better at home, the Portland bench, because obviously the role players perform better in a more comfortable setting at home. I wonder, though, if Dwight Howard has it in him to really sort of just have a monstrous game, have a LaMarcus Aldridge type of game on the road, and just, demand the basketball, make sure he takes and makes high percentage shots, gets to the free throw line more than 6 times, like he did the last game, and really put his stamp on this series, even if he doesn't win this game, to say, hey, look, not only am I ready to give a huge effort in the future, but look, this wasn't my fault. Don't put it on me. I came to Houston to get past the first round. I did my part. We just need to tweak the roster a little bit and make sure that it goes works better around me. Do you think Dwight has that in him, whether it be the personality to do it, the ability to do it, or the wherewithal to do it while not getting his teammates out of rhythm, if that makes any sense? So basically, can he do this in a winning effort and really say, look, I'm still the best big man in this league?
No, I don't think he can do that, Izzy, because it requires too much. It requires the spirit of a champion, or the leadership qualities of someone that has a fine understanding of what his teammates' strengths are. I don't think Dwight still understands it quite yet, whereas he has opportunities to help others to get shots. He has opportunities to help others defensively. These are the moments where you have certain players step up and say things like, hey, don't worry about it. When you make sure that you send a guy baseline, I'll have your help. I'll come over on the backside and help out once he goes up for a shot. I need someone else to help me out. Dwight doesn't have that particular mechanism in him to do those types of things, Izzy. And I think that's where we get in trouble when we see a player with his talent and we don't see the improvements necessarily, and we want to say, oh, he has to do this or he has to do that. But in reality, he's shown us that that's not what he's capable of doing, because he has not been able to start the improvement. I guess a better example would be, we talk about Blake Griffin's athleticism. We've also seen how he's continued to work on his game, where he's starting to use basketball moves now as compared to just trying to just athletically out-jump someone to get a jump hook, or he doesn't have a counter move. You see it every now and then with Dwight Howard when he's playing against lesser opponents. But when he's playing against somebody that can play a little bit of defense, like LaMarcus Aldridge, he doesn't go to all those array of moves that he has. He goes back to what he knows. And that's the thing. We're all creatures of habits in what we do. And when you talk about athletes and what they can do, they're always going to go back to what they feel most comfortable with. And he's just not comfortable with trying to take full responsibility for everyone and make sure that he can lead them past whatever hurdle that they're going against.
All right, I think this one ends tonight. What do you think?
I do too, Easy.
All right, so let's move on to Toronto. No, that's all I need. Let's move on to Toronto, Brooklyn.
I'm not going to sit here and make a prediction or anything like that on the closeout game. It's a 2-game series, and we got 1 game at home, 1 game on the road. So, but we've got to get better defensively than we were tonight.
That was Toronto coach Dwayne Casey, whose team can also wrap their series up against Toronto tonight. However, this is in Brooklyn tonight. We saw Kyle Lowry score 36 points to give Toronto the edge in Toronto in Game 5. That game was interesting because they were up 26, Toronto was, and gave up that lead entirely, and then sort of won it at the end there with some really good play from Kyle Lowry, I think, but also some questionable choices down the stretch from Jason Kidd. He sort of rode the group of players that got them back into the game, only to have it sort of backfire on him down the stretch and have Andre Blatch with the ball in a situation where they needed a 3, and it was just kind of messy there. But now this one has the feel of a series that's going to go 7. It just has, Brooklyn, it feels like they haven't been playing to their full potential the last couple games, and now it's almost like, all right, guys, I know we're old, I know we miss shots, I know, we're not the fastest team in the world, but we're stronger. We've kind of bullied them in the 2 games that we won, and all of a sudden we're not taking that approach anymore. Let's just get this done, get it to a Game 7, and let our experience, help us out in that one. Where do you see this one going?
Early on I talked about the experience of what Brooklyn has. I felt like that would be what was necessary to get over a young athletic team. But Toronto has definitely surprised me. They surprised me from the standpoint their ability to rebound and make necessary corrections within what they're doing on the offensive end as well as the defense. I love the fact that Dwayne Casey has all his 4 men pounding the glass. They are out rebounding Brooklyn Nets as they have their victories. You put Paul Pierce at the 4 spot, okay, well, Amir Johnson, I want you to get on the block. Paul can't stop you down there, and you go for every rebound. So I like that adjustment, but more importantly, it's the character that these guys have, Izzy, as far as the Toronto Raptors. They're passionate and they fight. They're not just happy to be there and possibly get ousted in the first round. They want to win, and they show it by the way they play. Now, the flip side is that you allowed this Brooklyn Nets team to score 43 points, I believe it was, in the fourth quarter. And you have moments where you give up maybe 30, but 43? No. That's one of those deals where I think Dwayne Casey is going to really harp on quite a bit while they're at practice, looking at the shoot-around films, and they'll make a big-time adjustment there. But the unsung hero, Izzy, is Kyle Lowry. The way he's playing, I mean, I've never seen – I saw Tony Parker go at Darren Williams when he was in Utah, but even back then, Darren would go back at Tony. I don't see it with Darren, and I see Kyle Lowry with an attitude like, you're not going to stop me from getting where I want to get on the floor. You're not going to stop me from making shots. And you have to have that type of attitude along with DeMar DeRozan and the way that he's playing. I think they lose tonight, Izzy, but they win back at home in Toronto.
Oh, Kyle Lowry's looks like a little bulldog. He's undersized, but he's also bulky and fast and just so entertaining to watch because he doesn't look like he should be able to get some of these shots off and get to the spaces that he gets to, and he gets there anyway. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. And you mentioned Amir Johnson. It's one of the things that Patrick Patterson's in that mix too. You know, Dwayne Casey mentioned in Game 3 that, you know, if they're going to put Paul Pierce at the 4 spot, they're going to put 3 men at the 4 spot. Our 4 men have to dominate the boards and, frankly, can probably do some scoring over them too, and that's what you saw Amir Johnson do. Amir's an interesting guy. I was just reading a story recently from Jason Buckland. I guess he wrote a story for us from Toronto, and he mentioned that Amir was a guest judge on Top Chef Canada, which is great, or Canada's version of Top Chef, which is funny. And apparently he also sang Backstreet Boys on the air in that show rather than really talk basketball. So that he's an interesting personality, but he's also a guy that, if you look at sort of some of the advanced stats, his numbers really speak to how valuable he is. And it's not something that you really notice if you just kind of watch the game and don't really focus in on him. But I do think I'm with you. I think Brooklyn probably wins tonight. I feel like they're going to have that extra motivation, obviously, to avoid elimination. But I think the Raptors, and we see how it is when the Raptors sort of let off the gas. Obviously, they can lose a 26-point lead in a heartbeat. But in a Game 7 at home, in that atmosphere in Toronto, I have a feeling it's going to get to that Game 7, and I have a feeling Toronto's going to pull that one out. But we got one more game, and that's, Bruce, it's your boys against the Mavericks.
Just stay aggressive. We want the ball touching his hands in good situations. So we got to continue doing that, and it'll be a better situation if we can get more stops. He's playing well offensively, and the shots went in tonight. We just got to make sure that our obsession in this series is at the defensive end, because that's where it's really hard. It's really hard because of the pace that they play with and all their cutting and passing and late passing and stuff like that. That's where our focus and attention has got to be number one headed into Game 6.
That was Mavericks coach Rick Carlisle starting off discussing Dirk Nowitzki, who hadn't been having a great series until he put up 26 and 15 in a Game 5 loss. He also mentioned the defense. The Spurs put up 109 points in that game and, didn't shoot the ball incredibly well, but rebounded the ball pretty well and got 12 offensive rebounds, got themselves a few extra possessions that way. But it seems like the Spurs have kind of figured out a way to, at the very least, score with Dallas, if not shut them down a little bit. It seems like we've been waiting for Dirk to have a big game. He had a big game, and yet it still wasn't enough because guys like Sean Marion weren't there, Calderon weren't there, Devin Harris weren't there. It was basically Dirk and Vince with a touch of Monte in there as well. Does it seem like the Spurs have this series figured out to you, Bruce?
Well, I think that they figuring out is such an iffy word, Izzy, because the dynamics change so much. As you said, you had Devin Harris, who was playing huge in a few of these games, and then he disappears last night. You had Monte Ellis that was really a big factor in the fourth quarters, but he wasn't much of one. I think the Spurs are happy if Dirk Nowitzki is going to be the guy to shoot a lot of the balls. There's a period where I think he shot like 6 shots in a row, and it looked like old Dirk. But the only risk you run in that is that now Monte's not getting into a rhythm of going to the basket and attacking the basket. He pulled up for a 3 in that game late against the Spurs, and I just felt like that's not the shot you wanted. And I think part of that is because he hadn't had a shot in some time. And so when Dirk gets going, it's almost like you got to surround him around guys who can benefit from that as well, and continue to stress to Monte how important his role is for this ball club. Playoffs are always different. I don't think there's ever a time that teams necessarily figure out a certain team system, but what they do is make the necessary adjustments to the things that they like to do. Here it is. Vince Carter went off like I've never seen before in a playoff series, other than when he was in Toronto. So you had him doing what he was doing because the Spurs were taking away some of the other opportunities that Dallas had. So now you get back to the deal of if it's going to be about Dirk and Vince Carter doing it all for you on the offensive end, the Spurs will welcome that.
That's kind of classic Spurs here in terms of their opportunity to win this game on the road and seal out the series. But I don't know. I got a funny feeling about this. I think Dallas might be able to really send this one to a Game 7 and put some pressure on the Spurs. What do you think? What do you think happens in this one?
I think San Antonio closes it out tonight, Izzy. It's one of those deals where they get it and they don't want to continue on with this, and it's important for them to move on so they can get some rest.
All right, I'm gonna say Dallas wins it. I don't know. I'm just pulling that one out of nowhere because I have a feeling I've been trying to get a grasp of this series. I don't really have one. I watched the last 2 games in particular quite closely, and even though the Spurs won both those games and they seem to have a grasp of the series a little bit, since it's unpredictable so far, I'm going to go ahead and say Dallas wins that one. But there's zero research behind that one other than just a funky feeling I have. So there you go, whatever that's worth. All right, now coming up, we speak about these Game 7s, record amounts of Game 7s coming up on Saturday.
Someday, people will say, I knew Ty, Ryan, Chase, Dylan, when he was kart racing in 38th place. Someday, people will say, he's on a roll, on fire. Someday, people will shake their heads and say, man, that kid sure did grow up fast. Names are made here. The NASCAR Nationwide Series at Iowa. Sunday at 1:30 Eastern on ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you work so hard to get as high a seed as possible, to have home court in situations like these. But, not happy about the way we played, but we got to forget about it because we got a big one coming up.
That was Blake Griffin, whose LA Clippers lost Game 6 in Golden State by a single point, 100-99. It was an interesting game because it was close, and that's about it because it was kind of muddied. I mean, the Clippers shot 37%, the Warriors shot right around 39%. You didn't really have explosive performances from anybody. Steph kind of did his thing a little bit, but still needed 24 shots to get his 24 points. Wondering what you think of the style of play in this series, because you think about the Warriors and you think about this team that wants to play this clean type of game, really shoot the ball, and their defensive numbers say they're a really quality defensive team, but when you watch them play, it's not necessarily sort of a style that makes you say, wow, that team is really good defensively, or wow, that team has shut that team down. It's just kind of within the flow of their game. But if they really have any chance of winning in LA, in my opinion, in Game 7, they really need to muddy the game. They really need to just get fouls going, keep Blake Griffin out of rhythm as much as possible, try to force the turnovers, and just somehow try to get that shooting percentage for LA under 40%, which is a lot to ask for in any single game, much less in a Game 7 on the road. But Does it seem to you that that's the way the Warriors have to play, given all these, beautiful basketball options they have in front of them? They really need to kind of make this game ugly.
Well, no, I don't think that's the way they do it, Izzy. I think it was a fluke. I repeat, I think it was a fluke yesterday that they were able to even stay in that game because you have to think the game as well, Izzy. You can't have 5 fouls and get a fifth one like David Lee did yesterday, Izzy. I don't understand it. You know that you're thin on bigs. So, hey, if that means I got to take a step off a guy, okay, I'm going to do that because I know it's more important for me to be on the floor as compared to be sitting on the floor either in foul trouble or fouled out of the game. You have Maurice Spates, who doesn't get a lot of time. This is a great opportunity for you. But what do you do with it? You want to go out there and you big bully now. There's nobody behind you guys. I mean, I just sometimes I think about certain things that go on throughout the game, Izzy. Here it is. And on the flip side, it's not just on the Warriors. It's on the Clippers as well because I think more than anything else, Doc saw a great opportunity go away yesterday because they wanted to shoot jump shots. They don't have an inside presence at that particular moment. You all need to pound the ball inside to Blake. Blake, don't shoot a jump shot right now, Blake. I need you on the block. I need you on the block. If you create something for someone else like J.J. Redick or someone like that, fine. But all the fouling that the teams were doing, Izzy, I just felt like this was an opportunity that the Clippers could have really, just taken it to the Golden State Warriors with the unfortunate array of things that took place. Jermaine O'Neal going down with the knee sprain. J.J. Redick fouls out. It was such an odd game, Izzy. It's as if the Clippers felt like, okay, we'll show up and then it'll be over with. No, you still got to go out and take whatever it is that you're trying to acquire. And on the flip side, I knew Golden State would come out with a sense of purpose, with a sense of urgency, but it was only in Stephen Curry that I saw it in, Izzy. I didn't see it in Klay Thompson. And it's just, I guess part of it for me is that I was raised in basketball a different way. It wasn't about quick shots with us. I've played for controlled coaches that understood the value of possessions each trip down the floor, especially in the playoffs. There was a quick three that Klay Thompson took. I understand he was open, but you weren't shooting well that night. This is not a heat check for you. Now is the time where you really have to be decisive on what kind of shots you're taking. Just don't take a shot just to take one. And then Jordan Crawford comes in the game, and he's isolating down low against Darren Collison, and he's taking shots where I'm saying, no, this isn't even a guy that you feature necessarily within your offense right now. He has to come in and play a certain role. His role is not going on a block right now and putting up shots, which allows the Clippers to hang around.
I feel like your shock on their shot selection makes me think this is the first Warriors game you've seen all year, because that's what they've been doing all year long. That's what Jordan Crawford does, and that's why I don't have very long hair, but sometimes I try to pull my hair out when I watch him play. Sometimes it's very much a coin flip what you get with him, but the approach is going to be the same. Same thing with Klay. Like Klay's a shooter. He's been hyped up by his coach as one half of the best shooting backcourt in the history of the game. So in his opinion, he's going to take every shot where he even has a sliver of space, and he thinks that one's going in. And you know what? A lot of times it results in a big scoring game for him, or a demoralizing demoralizing for the other team anyway. And that's what they want him to do. So I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with that style. Like, that's one of the things that about the Warriors that has been frustrating to watch over the past year or two is some of their shot selection. But they won 51 games, and they're in Game 7 in the playoffs against the 3 seed, and they beat the 3 seed last year. So at some point you have to wonder if it's just us wanting something different, something that we're used to, because when those shots are falling, nobody's complaining about them. So I will say this though, you talked about David Lee fouling and Maurice Spates fouling. That was an elimination game for that team. Yeah, they're shorthanded with the bigs, but they can't play soft. They can't play careful. They've got to leave it all out there and, maybe get a break here or there and hope that a whistle doesn't blow. But for the most part, slowing that game to the pace that they did, even with those fouls, I mean, that's kind of what they had to do. They didn't really have a choice. They couldn't, walk on eggshells in this one and expect to come out victorious.
I get what you're saying, Izzy, but, just David Lee's 5th foul. It's like, you have 5 fouls. You come back into the game, you have 5 fouls, and Blake isolates you, and you try to ride him with your chest? Come on. If Blake shoots a jump shot, so be it. We know that he's more effective in the paint other than just shooting a jump shot, contested jump shot. I guess, and I'm not saying play tentative, Izzy. I guess I want you to play smarter, especially when you have 5 fouls. That's what I guess I want more than anything else, is guys to be more aware of what's going on and don't get the ticky-tack fouls. If you got 2 fouls, you automatically know, okay, I got 2. I can't get another foul in the first half, or else it's really going to put me in an awkward position where I can't be aggressive. So I guess that's where I'm going with that, Izzy, is as far as that's concerned. Not necessarily that, that they have to play softer or slow it up, but it's just, come on, man, use your brain a little bit.
All right, well, here's Draymond as we discuss Game 7 and what we're going to expect. Here's Draymond Green discussing what his team needs.
Our back were against the wall, trying to force a Game 7, and everyone was ready. You had Mo Space come off the bench, gave great minutes. You had Jordan Crawford come off the bench, gave great minutes. It's going to take a great effort from everybody. It's not going to be the starting 5, or it's not going to be, although we know Steph can win a game by himself, everyone have to bring what they bring to the table, and we were able to do that tonight. Now we got to try to take that same effort to L.A.
All right, the only problem with that in Game 7 is you might not have Jermaine O'Neal, although he says it would take an act of God for him not to play, but I believe Glenn Davis running into him and hyperextending his knee is an act that says, hey, shut it down, big fella. So he only played 2 minutes in Game 6. You don't know what you're going to get from Jermaine O'Neal in Game 7. Interestingly enough, they've gone away from Steve Blake, so he's not really – well, at least they went away from him in Game 6. Who knows if they're going to go back to him or go back to Jordan Crawford to be a spark. Quietly, and I know he didn't have a good shooting game, but quietly Harrison Barnes has had a productive series so far. Maybe he can be an X factor in a Game 7. If it's not going to be just Steph and Clay, where do you think it comes from the Warriors first, and then we'll get into the Clippers?
I think it has Draymond Green, Izzy. I think Draymond can have a big game, and Jordan Crawford as well. But I lean more towards Draymond because of the fundamentals of the game that he possesses. He's a guy that you can put him with anyone out there on the floor, Izzy, and he kind of fits to what's needed in that particular moment. So I'd have to go with him. And someone that can catch fire, as we all know. I know Jordan Crawford can. I just like for him to be a little more selective.
Yeah, it's what's interesting with Draymond. There's times where you watch him play, and he takes a shot like a step-back 3 or a fade away with Blake Griffin on him, and you're just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I know it's one thing to have confidence, and it's another thing to be in a position where they're giving you minutes and you have to play an integral role, but you can't be that guy who also takes questionable shots when you've got, Steph kind of has to take those shots to see how hot he is. Klay Thompson's encouraged to take those shots. Jordan Crawford is programmed to take those shots, and all of a sudden you got another guy who's going to come in there and take those shots, and you're just like, what are you doing? But then you realize everything else he does in the game, and it's almost like you have to throw that guy a bone if he's going to get you 14 rebounds and 5 steals and play solid defense against the guy he's got no business playing defense against in Blake Griffin. So, I think you have to give him his credit. And the thing about Dre is he's not afraid of anything. Like, he's going to go into L.A. and think this is our game. You see his interaction with the refs. It's like this guy's been in the league for 10 years. And so he's a great guy to watch and really have an impact and watch how he has an impact on this team. But heck, last time they played in L.A., it was a 113-103 game in Game 5. But the Warriors, offensively, they played pretty well. Steph probably needed more than those 10 field goal attempts, but Clay had it going. Andre Iguodala had it going. David Lee had it going. So I think that they have a confidence going into L.A. for Game 7. What do the Clippers have to do to really just nail it down and give the Warriors no hope? I mean, it really basically comes down to DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin really making them pay for that, having that void in that interior, right?
No, yeah, you're absolutely right, Izzy, and it's going to be efficiency. It's when I say efficiency with the Golden State Warriors, it's a little soft. And what I mean by soft is I'm not as strict because they do have the shooters. It'll be important for you to see Clay and Stephen to be aggressive early. They're going to have to match the intensity because the Los Angeles Clippers, they're going to be at home. They're going to be ready to close it out. They're going to be ready to rock. So I think it's really important that they come out with a purpose, Izzy, and really bring the fight to L.A. They cannot afford to kind of wait around and get down maybe 10 points in the first quarter and then start, trying to fight back. They have to come in and get out to a great start to keep this game, I think, at an even keel at least through the fourth quarter.
Well, I think the game changer has been DeAndre Jordan. His performance has kind of set the tone, and he started off well in Game 6, but it was nothing like his consistent performance in Game 5 where he was 25 points, 18 rebounds, 8 of 10 shooting. He to me, is the difference maker in this series, and it's kind of unfortunate that Chris Paul has had the bad hamstring. He hurt his hand yesterday too, his offhand. So he's got some nicks and some injuries that are really affecting him. Otherwise, I think this series would have been over by now. But if Chris can have a good shooting game, really forget about the hamstring, really just kind of let it all out there, and really get this team going to a great start, I think the Clippers run away with it. But otherwise, like I said, I think the Warriors have a plan to really muddy the game, and they're going to, even if it takes Hilton Armstrong playing 10, 15 minutes and using 5 fouls on DeAndre and Blake, because remember, Blake's free throw shooting has improved this year, and he's been solid on that line. But who knows where it's going to revert to in a Game 7 situation, and DeAndre Jordan isn't going to hit a lot of free throws, or at least a good number of free throws. So I think, you go to your extra bigs and you really just, especially if Jermaine can't play, throw Hilton Armstrong out there and say, hey, buddy, give me 5, 6 fouls. And I'm guessing not only will that ruin the rhythm of the Clippers, but it would, really just help slow the game down and keep the Warriors confident that they can stay in it. But we'll see what happens in that one. We've got another intriguing Game 7, Oklahoma City and Memphis.
No, we were down 3-2. We're on the brink of elimination. That's more motivation for us all. Headlines, not going to give them credit for nothing. We're down 3-2. We needed to win this game. That's more motivation than anything.
That was Mr. Reliable, Kevin Durant, on this Game 7 coming up, and the fact that he didn't need any extra motivation to win an elimination game in Memphis. It wasn't just Kevin Durant in this one. This was, Caron Butler in the starting lineup. This was Russell Westbrook getting closer to the rim on some of his pull-up jump shots and not just wildly taking outside shots. This was a really concerted effort on the defensive end. They played physical. They played like the better team. And it's hard to envision Oklahoma City going home after that and not doing something very similar, if not the exact same thing, really just demoralizing the Grizzlies early on and saying, look, you guys had your run, but this is our series and this is our postseason. Because I see, if Oklahoma City gets past this Game 7, I see them, sort of renewing their confidence and just, getting through these next 2 teams, or whoever the heck they face, and getting to the NBA Finals. But first, there's this Game 7. Do you see that sort of continuation in the way Oklahoma City played in Game 6 going into Game 7?
Absolutely. Kevin Durant figured something out. He figured out that it was no fluke that people have been praising him for his ability to score the basketball. He figured out that, I can't get down on myself because I've missed shots. I still have to be better with the next shot that's coming. And so I think with that, he concentrated a little bit more on, not exerting as much energy early on as he had in the past of trying to fight, get tangled up. You know what? He just said, I'm just coming off this screen and I'll let the chips fall where they may. I think when they saw Kevin looking like that, it kind of spread to everyone on their team. There's a certain play. They just got after it last night, Izzy, from a standpoint of everyone was engaged. Everyone knew what was going on. There were very few drives to the basket where you didn't have someone coming over to help. create an obstruction to the rim by extending their hands up, trying to block a shot. It was basketball that we've accustomed to have seen from the Thunder throughout the season. We saw it last night, and it didn't matter who was guarding who. They were on a mission. Kevin Durant was like, I'm the best player in the game right now, and I'm going to show it. That's the kind of effort they had. There's a point where he took in the first quarter, he was taking the ball to the basket, and that's what you want scorers to do. Yes, he can knock down jump shots, but when you start off shooting jump shots, it takes the aggression, or I should say the natural aggressiveness, away from him as far as trying to get to the rim. Because when he gets to the basket or gets in the paint, there's options. Either they foul him and he goes to the free throw line, or he creates enough attention where he kicks it out to someone for a wide open shot, and at the end, he scores. So what you saw was an engaged Kevin Durant yesterday, and even with his point total, he had 15 free throws. He got to the line. And when players like him get to the line, that allows them to have a better feel and a better rhythm of the game. And it becomes infectious with everyone. I still like to see him and Russell Westbrook take 5 less shots to get 5 better shots, and allow those 5 bad shots to go to someone else as far as good shots. Because I don't think they have to shoot it as much, but they can get the ball moving around where others can benefit as well.
Well, I don't think I agree with, what Kevin said anyway, that I don't think he needed that headline to give him motivation. I mean, this would have been an embarrassing first-round exit. Not that they still can't go out, but it would have been an embarrassing first-round exit to go out the way he did, especially in Game 6 after those 4 games where he just didn't shoot the ball very well and shot around 37% and, committed about more than 4 turnovers a game. But this is exactly what I expected. This is why I said going into the game, look, you can blame Scotty Brooks all you want, and he deserves plenty of the blame. You can blame Russell Westbrook all you want, and he deserves, a chunk of the blame. But this has to be on Durant to recover. It's the same thing that you would say with LeBron James. Okay, if LeBron James was in a playoff series and he was playing poorly, and Dwayne Wade's limping around and not giving you, 20 a game, and Chris Bosh is not really finding ways to get his shots, nobody's going to say, hey, Dwayne's hurt. Hey, Chris Bosh has to get more. No, they're going to say LeBron didn't do enough, especially if LeBron was struggling the way Kevin Durant was struggling. So LeBron would put it on himself just like any great player would, and that's exactly what Kevin Durant did. He put it on himself. He's not sitting there moping about his coach not really having, very many good offensive play calls or any at all. He's not really sitting there moping about Russell Westbrook not being a more efficient shooter. I mean, he's still got a guy who's a top 15 player in the league, maybe top 10 player in the league in Russell. So Durant did exactly what I expected him to do. However, there's one guy who I didn't expect to make a significant impact in this game, and that was Mr. Scotty Brooks, and we're going to play a bit of sound from you right here about him discussing this Game 7.
It's a great place to play. We have a great building. Everybody knows that. Everybody comes into our city knowing that we have the best building in the league. It means that it's going to be loud and crazy in there, but we still got to play with the same type of fearless approach on the defensive end that creates offensive opportunities for us.
Now, there wasn't really a whole lot to that bit of sound, right? I mean, it's typical coach talk. I just kind of wanted to play it so I can say he's really Mr. Unreliable, okay? He is the guy that the Oklahoma City Thunder are looking at and saying, what are you giving us? And the reason I bring that up is because he actually gave you something in Game 6. What did he do? He sat Thabo Sefolosha. Thabo didn't play at all. And if you look at the pattern of this series, Game 1, Sefolosha didn't play a whole heck of a lot, 11 minutes. The Thunder win. Game 2, Thabo plays 32 minutes. That's a loss. Game 3, Thabo plays 31 minutes. That's a loss. Game 4, 15 minutes. That's a win. And then Game 5, well, that was only 9 minutes and they lost, but it was a 1-point game. They could have won that one. So basically, you're looking at finally Scotty Brooks makes an important decision and says, okay, I'm not going to take Kendrick Perkins out, even though that's what everybody wants me to do. I'm going to leave him in for defensive purposes, but I'm going to take out an offensive liability in Thabo Sefolosha. And hey, what do you know? They win by 20 when he doesn't play a single minute. And this is not a knock on Sefolosha necessarily. I mean, he was a good part of that team when they made it to the NBA Finals a couple years ago. ago. It just happens to be, certain series call for certain players maybe. You see adjustments like, Eric Spoelstra playing James Jones against the Charlotte Bobcats and LeBron James saying, hey, heck of a coaching move, Eric. And you see him, there are times, I remember last year against the Pacers where the guy that he relied on pretty much all year long, and Shane Battier, didn't really play. And Shane Battier said, sometimes you just got to eat a turd sandwich. And then all of a sudden what happens in Game 7 against the Spurs, guy goes off for 6-3. So you can't really go to Frank Vogel. There's another guy. He made an adjustment. Slowly but surely taking Roy Hibbert's minutes away and playing a Chris Copeland and really, it took him a while, but finally adjusting to Atlanta. Well, here you go, Scott Brooks. You finally did something. And I feel like I'm beating up on the guy, but, I was listening to Tom Haberstroh of ESPN.com talk about Oklahoma City and just how, he gave a line. He said, I can't imagine how many coaches in the league are watching Oklahoma City and laughing at the offense that they run because it's so simplistic. It's, hey, Kevin, hey, Russell, do something for us, please. And if the defense is on point, then they really look like a scattered offense. And so it's about time, I guess I'm saying, that he finally did something to impact this series. But, Bruce, is it possible the Memphis Grizzlies just had a slip-up and they can kind of really steal this one in Game 7? Because, it could be a sense of confidence that the Thunder have that maybe they take too far. And trust that they can win this one in Game 7 and those shots are going to go in. But, the Grizzlies have a tried and true way of winning, and that's with those bigs and that's with that defense. Can they pull one out in Oklahoma City, do you think?
No. It would be different if this was a nip-and-tuck game that took place when OKC won last night. But they won by 20, Izzy. 20 points. Yeah. That's no – they were up a lot in that game as far as they got a lead early in the game, and Memphis didn't know what to do. They couldn't do anything with them. And so this is what I look at. If it was a nip and tuck game, Izzy, and you had a healthy Mike Conley Jr., then I might go with a possibility. But because that is not the case, because Mike Conley does so much for their offense as far as getting guys in the right spots, taking care of the basketball, and things of that nature, he's not 100% now. He has a strained hamstring, and with the style of play that he's a quick guy. He likes to get to certain spots. He's logged so many minutes, and I think you see a byproduct of the season and just how taxing this series has been for both teams. I think that's what has really created more of the mess of his health right now, is that he does not have anything to offer because he's exerted himself so much out there. So I know I'm a little winded here, Izzy, but I got to go with OKC because they figured something out. They got back to the basics of what they do. They got to running. They got to getting baskets in transition, and they defended, Izzy. There was one play where I forgot who it was that tried to throw a layup, but Adams said, get that shot out of here. and it led to a fast break. And who finished the fast break? Kevin Durant. How many times did we see that during the course of the regular season? It put the OKC back into what they do, and they're going home now. They're not taking this for granted, Izzy.
It's going to be really tough if Mike Conley isn't 100%, or he's going to give it a go. But if he isn't 100%, or if he can't play extended minutes, or even if he can't play at all, that's going to be difficult. Because you got your Nick Lathis is suspended. You got Bino Udrih, who had a couple of good games but kind of came back down to earth, 1 for 8 yesterday. To me, I think you could probably go with Mike Miller doing a lot of the maybe point forward type of handling. That way you have a good balance and really have an outlet for Zach to kick out to. But if Mike's not 100%, which you assume he's not going to be, it's going to be on Zach and Marc Gasol. And, if, again, kind of like I said with the Warriors, if they really sort of turn this into a messy game and a lot of interior play, a lot of fouling, then it's to their benefit. And, frankly, that's the direction they have to go when you don't have Mike Conley at full strength. But it's going to be a difficult one. So I can tell you're picking the Thunder in this one. I, too, am going to take the Thunder in this one. And it's going to be It's going to be a little sad because the Memphis Grizzlies had this fight in them, and they really had the feel of a team that could make a run as a 7th seed and really recapture, the type of success they had last year getting to the conference finals. But I see that one rather coming to an end. Let's move on to the final Game 7, which will be Pacers-Hawks.
We played all year for this, to get Game 7s in our building. Our energy's going to be great. We just have to, handle our business and, don't disappoint.
That was David West after he had a clutch performance at the end of that Pacers-Hawks game, the Game 6, which was won 95-88 by Indiana. It was the second time, actually, that he's had big closing moments in Atlanta in this series. Did the same thing in Game 4. This has an interesting feel to it, Bruce, because every time you think the Pacers have something figured out, then they come out and they lose the next game. And, they did it in Game 2, had a blowout, lost Game 3. Won a close game in Game 4, really emotional, blah, 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 lost in Game 5. And now they come out and they after being down 5, come back, pull that one out in Atlanta where it seemed like they were, they could have mailed it in down the stretch and said, hey, this is exactly how it's supposed to end, right? And they didn't. Does that translate into anything in your mind in Game 7?
No, Izzy, and it's just that
you're having a hard time with this one, I can tell.
Exactly, because Indiana has not made it easy for us to say, okay, they got it together. So, no, but I do think they'll win. I think with their backs against the wall, Izzy, you saw they're a better talented team. They have more talent than the Atlanta Hawks do. And that's no disrespect to the Hawks. It's just the way it is. David West, going through him is key. They have to go through him. I expect him to do a lot because he has that type of ability. If he takes you in the middle of the floor, he knows exactly where the double team's coming from. So if someone chooses double, he's able to swing the ball to someone for a wide open shot. And if he does not get doubled, he can take him down low, utilize his big frame against a smaller player in Paul Millsap. Or if they play off of him, he has a nice mid-range game. All that is fine and dandy when you go through David West. Now, the only issue I have is that Stevenson, don't go into the Rutgers Park dribbling moments. They need him to just you go to the basket, no dancing with the ball so much, because you can get by the guys without all that. Because sometimes you end up turning the ball over or wedging it between the glass and the rim.
That was so terrible. Like that deserves all the mocking that it gets, that play. That was embarrassing. All right. Yeah, I wanted to listen to this sound from Frank Vogel because, we mentioned the coaches that are making adjustments. He certainly made an adjustment, and here's what he had to say about going to a smallish lineup against the Atlanta Hawks.
It's not something that philosophically I'm really against. As a coach, it's just how our team is built. We've had success with it. So I think you can have success with small lineups, but there's a risk because you have to change some things with how you play. In particular on the defensive end, you got to get in a lot more rotations, and that takes work. And it's difficult to just do on the fly, but it's something we're trying to do.
Yeah, he basically played his center combination of Roy. Not basically, he played his center combination of Roy Hibbert and Jan Mahimi a total between the two of them of 35 minutes, 12 for Roy and 23 for Mahimi, which meant, 18 available minutes there for Chris Copeland to kind of sneak in and they go small. To me, they've gotten they're so good at being a defensive team that's traditional because they're big. They don't, like he said, they don't have to help and recover so much because their size allows them to get away with different strategies. A more traditional guy, stay where you're comfortable and will still contest shots. Well, when you go small, you got to do a lot of scrambling. It's stuff that they haven't been used to. So is that the type of thing that they can continue to do well, or because they basically haven't really practiced that way all year long, is it something that's going to be hit or miss? I guess what I'm asking you is it a sure thing that now that they've kind of gotten figured out a little bit in Game 6 that they can recreate that in Game 7, or is that one of those situations where because they don't practice it enough that it could kind of go awry quickly and all of a sudden Atlanta has a bunch of open threes again because guys aren't communicating, guys aren't on the same page?
Right. No, I think it's because they don't have as much time to prepare for it, Izzy. But this is what the playoffs do. You make adjustments, and the coaches, they come in early so that they can put together a game plan for a small lineup, making their rotations. So you start to implement that. You start to implement it where it gets to a point where now guys are starting to do it second nature, whereas they had other types of dependability thoughts as far as having Roy Hibbert behind them and being able to do that. Now he's no longer there. Guys need to guard the yard a little bit until they get help. So I would say it is more about continuing to work within that system and seeing what it does for you as compared to just throwing it at the guys, because they don't necessarily receive that stuff quite like that so quickly.
Yeah, it was interesting. The Hawks, they shot a series low 28.6% on drives to the basket Thursday, including 2 of 6 from Jeff Teague, which to me says that the Indiana Pacers, meaning basically found a way to deal with that without, again, relying on Roy Hibbert being there to stop them, because normally if he's in the game, they've got him out on the perimeter, defending Ontic or whatever three-point shooter that they put at that 5 spot. So it seems like, it's helped. The problem with that is, with all the sort of helping and the fact that they needed more bodies in the paint, well, Atlanta got a bunch of open jump shots. They had, defining what contested and uncontested is, but by the standards defined, by whoever keeps these stats, they had 37 uncontested jump shots, the Hawks did, and they weren't able to take advantage. They only shot 7 for 27 from three-point range, and they hit 29% of those uncontested jump shots that they took. So it was kind of a hit-or-miss situation for them. It's dangerous for the Pacers, because if they insist that they did a good job and try to recreate that in Game 7, well, chances are the Hawks might just hit a bunch of those open threes. Maybe Mike Scott has another crazy performance, which he had a crazy dunk in that game, by the way.
He sure did.
He did, right? It was the exact opposite of what Lance Stevenson tried to do. So to me, that's why this is so unpredictable, is because if the Hawks just make some jumpers, then this is a different game. And it's not like they're scared of playing in Indianapolis. Like, the Hawks look just as comfortable playing in Indy. They won a couple of games there already as they do playing at home. So it's really going to be dicey here. Where do you think, like, if you're the Atlanta Hawks, who do you ride with in this game? Who do you say, this guy has to have a huge performance for us? Because you could say it's Jeff Teague, but frankly, Jeff Teague had 29 points in Game 6, and it wasn't enough. I think they need somebody else there. To me, it's got to be one of those bigs. Ontic has to have a big game. Maybe Mike Scott, maybe, Paul Millsap. I mean, it's hard to ask a lot of Paul. I mean, he does everything. He didn't shoot the ball well in that Game 6, but he had 18 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. He does everything you need, so it's hard to ask for more from him. But, man, I don't know where you go if you're Atlanta and you say, I need somebody to do something big for me, because, frankly, I mean, Jeff Teague has been the answer, and, it still wasn't enough to win Game 6.
No, I think it has to be Millsap and Teague, Izzy. And hopefully you get another shooting performance from Carroll or even Ontic, as you said, because they just don't have the experienced talent that Indiana has. Indiana has guys that can control the game. You have David West, you have Paul George, you have Stevenson that can create and do things dynamically where it helps their ball club. Well, if Teague's not on point, if he's not attacking the basket, if he's not hitting that little short shot, then a lot of their opportunities go by the wayside. Same thing with Paul Millsap. Even when he's shooting these jump shots, when he's on, that helps that group out tremendously, because you have a bunch of role players on that team that have not had the experience that the Pacers have. So when you look at the situations as far as what they're doing, that's where you have to look and say, man, if they had Al Horford, maybe it would be different. I like Kyle Korver, and he's a plus to everybody on the floor because of his ability to extend the floor. But even that being said, they still need a big time performance out of those two guys just to kind of be in contention.
this Antich, I feel like he's due, and I say this Antich because everybody was making a big deal out of him being the guy that stretches, the floor and keeps Roy Hibbert away from the paint. This dude has not made a 3 since game 2. Okay, he's 0 for 0 for 12 from 3-point since then, and he's only hit 2 shots since then at all. And yet he still had such a big impact to the point where Roy Hibbert's not even playing barely. He's barely cracking double-figure minutes. But I don't really put too much value into history or anything else. But the Hawks on the road in Game 7s in franchise history are 0-8, and that's the most Game 7s on the road without a win in NBA postseason history. The next closest is the Bucks with 6. And then there are 5 teams with 2. So if there's any team that has perfected losing on the road in Game 7, it's the Atlanta Hawks franchise. And I hate to leave it that way, but I'm gonna. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the NBA Lockdown Podcast. For Bruce Bowen, I'm Israel Gutierrez. Enjoy those Game 7s on Saturday and maybe another on Sunday. Who knows? We will talk to you again on Monday.
Thanks for listening to the NBA Lockdown. For more great podcasts, visit the Pod Center page at ESPNradio.com.
For his birthday, I want to send my godson to a playoff game. With the 4-star rated Western Union app, I can send him money conveniently from anywhere and make sure it gets there by tip-off. WesternUnion.com is making things so simple nowadays, and right now, they've got a special promotion going on. Download the free Western Union mobile app, and if you're a new customer, you can send money for 0 fee by using the promo code 2014-2014.
One discount per transfer, no cash value, void where prohibited. This offer expires May 18th. Western Union also makes money from currency exchange.